I'm going to show how to handle a traditional animation cycle in After Effects, how to get the drawings to loop and how to be able to handle it as a single layer within your composition. So here's the 4 drawings with the animated hair cycle. Now there's a couple ways of handling this. One way would be to bring them in as an image sequence file. The other way would be to bring them in as individual layers. I'll show both. First, I'll bring them in as individual files or individual layers. So inside of After Effects, I'll go ahead and import, and then go to the desktop here and select these 4 files, and then they come in as individual files. And then I'll go ahead and make a new composition, do my HD size, hit OK. All right, so then we grab the drawings, drop them into the comp. Okay, so this approach is handling each drawing as a separate layer, right? Now, first thing to decide is, do we want to put it on 1s or 2s or 3s? And in fact, I'm going to show you how we can adjust the timing afterwards. So actually what I'm going to do is just set the work or set the out point on 1 frame. So I grab all of these, and then on the keyboard I'm going to hit Option and the right bracket key. Okay, so basically just trimming an out point to 1 frame. But like I said, you could, if you wanted 2s, you would do 2 frames, 3s, you could do 3 frames, and so on. I'll just do it on 1s, and then I'll show you how you can change the speed afterward. And then you're going to go to Animation, Keyframe Assistant, Sequence Layers. Keep the overlap option turned off, hit OK. So that sequences them automatically, one after the other. Now notice though, they're going from 4, it's going 4, 3, 2, 1 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to undo that. And here's how to reverse the stacking order. If you select the top one, shift click the bottom one, and then do Edit, Cut, Edit, Paste. See, it pastes them in that order, right? So if I select them in the other order, if I go drawing number 1 and then shift click drawing number 4 and then go cut and paste, see, it pasted them in the order that they were selected. Okay, and so now I can grab those and sequence them. There we go. Okay, so now I'll set my work area on the last drawing. So on the keyboard I hit the letter N, and I'll go ahead and trim the composition to work area. Okay, so now we have a 4-frame cycle on 1s. So back over here in the project panel, what I'll do is make another composition here to do my compositing in. I'll go ahead and call this my composite, and 10 seconds, whatever, and hit OK. All right, now this one, actually I should have named that. I should have called it animation cycle, or woman's hair, or whatever you want to call it, right? Hair cycle. Okay, so I put that comp inside my main composite. It's only 4 frames long, right? It's only a 4-frame composition because we sequenced the layers manually on 1s and trimmed it to 4 seconds. So that layer is only 4 frames long. Now here's the trick. Here's the thing you want to know how to do to be able to loop it over and over again and extend the duration. You're going to go to Layer, Time, Enable Time Remapping, and then you can extend the duration of the layer to whatever you need, and see how it gives you 2 keyframes. If we zoom in and take a look at those keyframes here, you can see that keyframe number 1 has a value of 0, time 0. Keyframe number 2 has a value of 4 frames, or actually the 5th frame if the first frame is 0. So here's the thing. Here's what you want to do. And this is actually easier if you change the time display to frames instead of time code. If you hold down the command key, click on the time display, see how it changes to frame numbers. So you can see the first frame is frame 0, and then this last keyframe is frame 4, really the 5th frame. So that's the frame after the last drawing. See, there's nothing there. So here's what you want to do. You want to add a keyframe, I should say, on frame 4, really frame 3 on our timeline. Now, if you want it to start numbering at 0 or start numbering at 1, you can actually change that. If you go to your composition settings, you could say start frame instead of 0. You could say start frame 1. That way the frame numbers on the timeline will match up to your drawing numbers. See? So anyway, that doesn't really matter. That's really just a matter of preference. I'll leave it at the default there, first frame 0. But anyway, point I was getting at here is you've got a 4 drawing cycle inside this comp. So what you want to do is have, a keyframe there for the first drawing, and then 4 frames later, so 1, 2, 3, 4, you want a keyframe for that 4th drawing. You don't need the one that it gave you here at 5, because that was the out point. You can delete that. Okay, now what we want it to do is loop these keyframes over and over and over. So instead of copying and pasting them, we're going to select the property, and we're going to go animation, add expression. We're going to use a script to do it. And to do that, we just type in this expression or script area here, you just type in loop, and then capital O for out, loop out, and then in parentheses, and you just put quotations, and then you put cycle. And that's the basic loop script. So loop out with a capital O, everything else lowercase, parentheses, quotation marks, and then cycle. And so now if we play that, you can see that it's just looping the animation over and over and over, right? It just through the out point of the layer. So loop out tells it to keep looping those keyframes all the way through the out point of the layer in a cycling fashion. Now you could also put loop out, and then you could put ping pong if you want it to cycle back and forth instead of, over and over, which in this case you probably don't want. Okay, so that's loop out, cycle. Now to control the timing, like I said, in the pre-comp it's on 1s, right? We set the sequence up on 1s, but maybe you want it on 2s or 3s. So that's easy now because the entire looping and speed of the cycle is being controlled by these 2 time remapping keyframes. So this one here, we've got that 4 frames in, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. If we go 5, 6, 7, 8, and move that, whoops, not both of them, just the second one, move that out there. So now we got 8 frames instead of 4. Now it's on 2s. Okay, so you just got to pay attention to the number of frames, right? So if you want it on 3s, you would go 12 out, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Second keyframe goes 12 frames out. So now it's going to be cycling on 3s. Okay, and that's pretty much all there is to it. Now you've got this all in a single layer. You've got your animation cycle looping and cycling thanks to the time remapping keyframes. And if you need to, animate the position of this or anything like that, of course you can, just animating the layer like usual. And the cycle, of course, will keep going. All right, so that is kind of the easiest approach, I think, as far as dealing with a small number of drawings. But if you want to deal with it as an image sequence, or if it's a larger sequence of drawings and you don't want each drawing to be a separate file or separate layer, here's how you can deal with it as a sequence instead. So I'm going to delete all of this, start again. Now, if we're dealing with things as an animation sequence, though, it's good to have the frames in their own folder. So make a folder real quick here and put the frames in it. And I'll call the folder hair cycle. Okay, so now back in After Effects, all I got to do really is just take this folder, drag it in like that. And you see the difference? It brought it in, instead of 4 separate files, it brought it in as one like single movie file. Okay, now you could also do that through the menu. You can go File, Import File, and then go to that folder, grab the first frame, the number 1 frame, make sure the sequence option is checked, click OK. Same thing. Okay, so instead of bringing them in as 4 separate files, it's treating it as a movie. Now notice it's assigning it a frame rate of 30 frames a second, which might not be what you want, right? So if you right click on it, go to Interpret Footage, go to Main, change the frame rate right here where it says Assume Frame Rate, change it to 24 or whatever you need, 23.976 or whatever, right? Whatever the project requires. Now from here, it's actually kind of the same thing as what I showed in the previous example, just skipping the pre-composing. Okay, so I can set up my main composition, my composite, and then I can drop the movie sequence into it. See, it shows up as a single layer. And then from here, it's basically the same thing as what I did with the pre-comp in the last example. If I go to Layer, Time, Enable Time Remapping, then I can extend the out point and zoom in here, take a look at the keyframes. And again, I need to pay attention to the number of frames, right? We know we have 4 drawings, so just keep in mind that it starts numbering on frame 0 unless you change that composition setting. And the second keyframe it gives you is the frame, the time code or frame number after your last frame, of picture. So what you want is 1, 2, 3, 4. So you want to add a keyframe there. You don't want to have a double exposure, so get rid of that one. And then same thing, to get it to loop over and over, we can take the property, add expression. Where is it? Animation, add expression, there we go. And then loop out with a capital O, and then cycle. Same expression. And same thing, so there we go. And then if you want it to be on 2s, you're just going to double, you're going to count 4 more out. So 5, 6, 7, 8. Drag that out. Now it's on 2s. All right, and then same thing, if you want to animate the position or the scale or whatever with this layer, you can, and that's pretty much all there is to it. The only advantage, the main advantage, I should say, to the first way I showed is if you need to do something to one of the individual drawings, it's easier. You can go into the pre-comp, do what you need to do to the individual drawing, because you've got each drawing as a separate layer. If you bring it in this way as a PNG, it's treating it, as a PNG sequence, it's treating it as a movie layer. So if you do need to do something to just one of the frames, maybe a little bit more tricky. I will mention, though, that if you make any changes to these layers, or I should say these files, like in Photoshop, like you could open these in Photoshop and make changes, and then in After Effects, if you select that in the project panel and right-click and choose Reload Footage, it'll update. So that's a good tip there as well if you need to make any revisions to the drawings. All right, hope this makes sense and helps you out. I'll see you later on.